Oh boy, all right. Here we go, guys. So today we are finally gonna be bringing you guys our first episode where we review other people's custom shoes here on camera. So this is something that we've wanted to do for quite a while, where we're just gonna have a discussion with you guys about things that were done really well by other customizers and potentially things that they can improve on. And quite frankly, we just think it's gonna be really fun to have a discussion about custom sneakers and look at other people's stuff. And for those of you who are familiar with the channel, you guys may know our segment called Customs of the Week, where we highlight some of our favorite customs that we saw throughout Instagram over the past week. But this is gonna be completely different in that we're actually gonna be able to hold the shoes in hand and see how the artist really did with them. So this setup that we have here in the new studio may look a little bit familiar to anybody who watches a lot of YouTube, as we really tried to base this off of Lou over from Unbox Therapy, who does some of the best tech reviews here on YouTube. So if you guys haven't heard of him, make sure you go ahead, check him out. We will have his channel linked down in the description. But let's go ahead and break these down. So some of the things that we're gonna be looking for when reviewing these is, of course, overall craftsmanship. How well did they execute their chosen theme? And another thing that we'll be able to break down is how did they do with shipping out this custom delicate item? At the end of the day, custom footwear can be a pretty pricey product, so we're very curious how much are they paying attention to detail when it comes to shipping out this expensive item and protecting it. All right, so first off, we're gonna check out this pair from Ray Rodriguez. We're gonna post everybody's Instagram on the screen so you can go ahead and check out their page also. Hi Dylan, these were made for my friend Chris, who recently had surgery. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about these. Instagram Ray Rodriguez. He also has a YouTube page. If you can mention that I'll be doing a giveaway at 10K subs, I'd highly appreciate that. Kind regards, Ray Rodriguez. So go ahead and give him a follow. So here we have a really cool pair of Galaxy Jordan 1s. There's a lot to like from the start. The colors are really vivid, starting off with this Bahama blue near the front. It fades into a darker black, a little bit more Bahama blue, into more black, a deep purple, and then we get into a nice, really vivid purple on the side, into another really dark black near the back, and then we have some really nice stenciling done here on the back of his friend's name. That came out super crispy. We also have some nice stenciling done on the tongue tags with the LV logo. I think that looks great. Overall, these are super clean and crispy. As far as potentially a few areas where I think there could be a little bit of improvement is it looks like the sock liner got sprayed also with the same design that's on the rest of the upper. And I just think that that's an area where either you deck out the entire sock liner with that same design, or you try to mask off the sock liner and keep all the paint off of it. This is one of those tiny little areas where you can kind of separate these from looking painted by somebody versus having that real factory look to where people can't even tell that they were painted by somebody. And I think that should be an overall goal, to try to have a factory look to a lot of your custom shoes. But overall, these came out super clean. I like the Galaxy design. The tiny little splatter everywhere looks good. We have some cool stenciling going on in a few of the colored areas with some red that really pops. I think that these look great overall. So we also have the tongue painted, and then another area, like I mentioned earlier, talking about that factory look, you can see from a few of these different views, we have this seam near the top of the tongue where half of it's painted and half of it's not. And this kind of gives it that painted look, where if we pick this as one solid color, if we did this blue along this entire seam here, then these won't have as much of a painted look, which I think would be a good thing to try to attempt to do. When I have something really important to break down, I'm gonna break out the toothpick to show you guys what I'm talking about. So it looks like this was an all white shoe, and then he taped off the swoosh. And then so you'll see that we have a couple areas around the swoosh where it looks a little bit different than the rest of the design. And so what happens is if you tape all this off and you don't spray it at the right angles, all of a sudden certain of these areas aren't gonna get as much paint on them. So a way to combat this is if you tape this off, go around with a paintbrush and actually get up in all of these seams with just a quick light coat around the swoosh. And then once you start hitting it with some of your stencils and the splatter effect, it's not gonna have this kind of unfinished look almost, or unblended into the rest of the design. So that's just one quick little thing that you'll learn over time on how to make everything really nice and seamless. Another thing that I just want to compliment on is if we look at all the areas where the upper meets the midsole, he did a really good job of cleaning these off. If this was potentially done with one pass of tape and then spraying the entire design, it looks really clean. Or if he went back and got rid of the paint on any areas where the paint might have got on the midsole, he did a great job with that. There is one little spot here on this back tab where a little bit of paint chipping did occur, and whether that may be during the shipping process, if that happened, of these getting bumped around, or you know, you definitely want to give everything 20 looks before you send them out, package them up, and send them away, because the last thing you want is for somebody to spend a ton of money on these and then get them in their hands and then they see a couple paint chips. It actually blends into the design because it's white. You see a little bit of white peeking through and it almost looks like some splatter, but I could kind of tell that's paint chip. So just one thing to recognize also. But great job on these, Ray. So next up we have a pair of Nike Huarache cleats from Toby over at Golden State Customs. You can see that he sent the cleats with just the tissue paper and no box inside. So like I said earlier, I'd like to see them a little bit more protected. Maybe that means wrapping them in some foam along with this tissue paper, or sending them with the box also. So here we have a pretty sweet pair of baseball cleats done by Toby over at Golden State Customs. I really like this design of still incorporating a lot of the factory kind of aspect from the shoe, of the entire black near the rear end of the shoe. And then I don't know what these look like beforehand, but I guess maybe this was all white or some other type of lighter color. He decked it out with this pink, and then he did this white stencil heart print everywhere. He also did it on the midsole and then even onto the outsole of these. Of course, the outsole of cleats isn't something that would last, so I potentially would have ended the tape seam right along here and just kept the entire bottom portion of the cleat left alone. The midsole you could probably get away with a little bit. That will come off over time before the upper does, but it's just something to consider. But overall, I think that the design came out super clean on these. All of the little heart stencils look great. He also did these mom stencils on the toe box and on the outer portion here. They come out really nice. They blend in really well. It has this kind of lightly airbrush stencil look that I think is really appealing to these and fits in with the rest of the hearts, where they're not really a solid white. They're kind of a little bit ghosted on there, so I think that that looks really good. The pink outline around the swoosh, that was definitely painted, but it looks really, really, really well. I would assume this stitching was white beforehand, but it looks really clean and you really can't see any white peeking through. We also have the pink on the Nike on the tongue tag, same thing. I'm guessing that that was white earlier, but there really isn't any more of that white peeking through. So definitely a really nice attention to detail with these. So as far as any other areas where there could be just a little bit room for improvement, I think that we could try to go back and touch up any of this black on the tongue here. I think that that would help improve these, no longer having that painted look. And then there's just a few areas where the pink meets the black, where some pink got onto the black, and these are so subtle, a lot of people wouldn't recognize this, but to really make these 100% as close to perfection as we can get, that's something that you'll want to go back, have that eye for, to know that you need to go back and touch that up. But great work on these, Toby. I'm sure that these will look great hitting the diamond. All right, next up we have another pair from one of our longtime YouTube subscribers, Panda Girl. So we have the entire shoebox wrapped in this brown craft paper. I potentially would like to see them double boxed. I think that that gives them a little bit more protection rather than just this craft paper though. So her Instagram username is USA Soccer for Life. She told us she is only 13 and this is the first pair that she has ever painted, and she has already worn the heck out of these. So this is pretty cool to see a custom worn pair on camera, and we'll be able to go ahead and see how they held up to the test of time. So first up, one of the first areas where paint cracking would occur on a custom painted shoe is near any of the creasing, and that would be here along the toe box, and these still look great. All of the designs here on the toe box is completely intact. There's almost no paint cracking. You will see near the outer portion here, like I said, this is one of the first areas where that real creasing occurs. So that's where you're most likely to get some paint chipping, and you could just see a little bit of cracking right here. So obviously inspired by the American flag, there's some really cool stuff going on here. We have the entire flag on the outer portions of the shoe. There's a black and white rendition of it on the insides of the shoes, the stars and stripes. We have the flag on these panels, and then we have the USA Soccer logo done on the tongue tags. That looks really good. And we also have probably my favorite feature of these is the Wings logo gets a pretty cool rebranding with the soccer ball on it. So we also have these metallic gold laces along with the metallic gold swoosh, and if you really zoom in and take a look at these, it looks like she went back and touched up a lot of the stitching to have a black painted stitching look. That must have taken a long time, but it looks really cool, especially against the swoosh having that black stitching. So one area where I think these could be improved a little bit is they do have that kind of glossy painted look. I'm guessing that there was no duller used with these, so the reds and the blues especially have that kind of glossy look. So I think that if we added a little bit of duller into those paints and these had a little bit more of a matte look, they would look a little bit less painted. Overall, I think that would improve these. But for a first pair at 13 years old, my hat's off to you. Absolutely phenomenal job on these. All right, and last up, we have a really special pair of Vans done from Roopsie Banks over on Instagram. So like I've talked about with some of the other pairs, right away, this is what I like to see. We have the shoebox, double box with an outer shipping box, and then we also have some brown craft paper stuffed on the insides to really protect these from shifting around, just in case any of the shipping carriers ever tossed this box around or it wasn't really handled with much caution. So we also have our first custom box of the day with this Edgar Allan Poe design. We have the black raven, we have the little twill wrapping, concealing the whole thing. We also have some blood splatter all the way around. This looks absolutely awesome. I am super excited to see what's inside. Ooh-wee, we've got a whole lot more. So here we have some business cards. These are done really well. Like I said, I would definitely think that these are the types of little things that you want to include in your boxes also. He's the first one of the day to include these. He sent 5 of them, so I could pass them over to my friends who might also be interested if they ever saw me wearing a really cool pair from him. So remember guys, anytime you send out a pair of shoes to a customer, they're now a walking billboard for you. So this is a great idea to send business cards. He really went all out with the overall design for these. We also have this note here wrapped up with the twill also. Let's see what we have. Damn!
What?
The f***? Yo, I'm a little taken back by how cool this is. So we have a note written to us, DeJesus Custom Footwear. I wanted to just start by saying thank you for critiquing my Vans Poe customs. The theme for this shoe is based from The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. I wanted to create a shoe that looks like it was made from pieces of his old poems. All of the distressing was done by hand using various tools. The shoe is donned with script from The Raven on the toe along with Poe in gold on both sides of the shoe, as well as the Raven on the heel. Adding cream-colored leather laces as well as a cream-colored custom leather tongue tag brought the shoe together to give it a nice vintage feel. I used Angelus Direct paint as well as Too Soft, and I topped it off with Angelus water and stain repellent to make sure the artwork is protected. Once again, thank you for your critique. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Color Blend Design, also known as Roopsie Banks on Instagram. And wow, before even seeing the shoes, I am completely blown away with the packaging. This note written to me, I would assume he would write a similar note to all of his customers. So this is already a 10 out of 10 without even seeing the shoes yet. We also obviously have some cool tissue paper on the inside, the gold and black. I'm sure it fits the theme well. And look at how the shoes are even sealed on the inside. So the attention to detail on these is just the next level. And this is what you want to see with custom shoes. I almost don't even want to open these. These are awesome. I mean, this is something that could go up on a shelf and stay like this with a vacuum seal around it. These are just really, really unique. And when he first sent me the pictures, the first thing that I was very curious about even showing them over to Jason was, these don't even look painted. This absolutely looks like a collab, you know, an Edgar Allan Poe design van. I mean, these are just incredible, but we're gonna go ahead and open them up anyway. All right, so, wow, I really don't know where to begin with these, but the first thing that I'm gonna touch on is the overall theme. So these are obviously inspired by Edgar Allan Poe, meant to look like one of his poems, and you absolutely achieve that with this really old vintage look. These really do look like a poem. The distressing on these is absolutely incredible on the pair of canvas Vans. I mean, this is just really unique. I really love the torn up Van stripe. You obviously cut away some parts, distressed other areas. The cream colored laces are awesome. You get the Edgar Allan Poe Raven tongue tag. And of course, we can't forget all of the poem that's on the toe box, how good that looks. Like I said, that looks like it could have been calligraphied by hand by Edgar himself. I don't know if you did this with a stencil or if you did this all by hand, but either way, it came out absolutely incredible. Poe on the outside and the insides of these. So this is just a true masterpiece of a custom sneaker. This is top of the line. This is as good as it gets, in my opinion. So of course we still have to pinpoint a few things where there could potentially be room for improvement. So I'm assuming that you taped off the entire sole of these, and these vulcanized outsoles that you see on Vans and other things like Janowski's, the Nike SBs, they really tend to hold tape residue. So it takes a lot of time to go back with a Q-tip and acetone and make sure you get all that off. I do see just a few spots where there is some residue or a little bit of brown paint left behind, but it is so minimal. But of course, you know, like I said, these are just those tiny little things that I'm looking for that we could potentially just talk about and everybody could learn from. Even if they're not really occurring here, potentially somebody else could, you know, hear that and then think that that's one more thing that they have to check before they send their shoes out. And what might be most impressive about these is that the picture set that he used is absolutely incredible, but to be honest, they look even better in person. And that's something that you should hope for, that once people get your custom shoes in hand, that they are even more blown away than they could ever be by any potential photos that you send them or that they see online. So I'm not sure if these were airbrushed or painted by hand. I'm gonna take a stab and say that these were airbrushed, and I just want to compliment some of the vignettes that are done around a lot of the panels. Now, instead of going with the black vignette that would have really added a lot of contrast, I like going with just the dark brown. It's subtle, but it has that aged poem look, which I think is done really well. And then to add to that vintage look, it looks like there was some types of airbrush stencils that were added with the darker browns throughout these to just kind of give it that washed and held and touched by a lot of people poem look that's done on that old beige paper. I mean, these just really hit the nail on the head. That was fun, guys. You guys are incredibly talented. Some of those were really cool to see. Obviously, we had a wide range of really unique things, and I think that we're gonna have a lot of fun with this series. So we will have the first link in the description if you are interested in sending your pair in to have them reviewed here on this series. Go ahead and fill out that form, and we will get back to you shortly after. Hopefully this is something that you guys can learn from every time you come back and watch a new episode. Even if you potentially don't customize sneakers, but you know somebody who does, who you think might be interested, be sure to send them this first episode. We would love to have other new people featured here on this series. So we would really appreciate it if you guys could go ahead and check out some of these really brave artists' Instagram. It was really courageous of them to go ahead and send their shoes over to us and have them critique here on camera. Overall, they did an incredible job, so go ahead and show them some love. As always, we greatly appreciate your guys' support. If you're interested, go ahead and send us some potential and name ideas for this series. We were thinking about the Custom Critique Corner, but we don't want to have another segment that has the same acronym as the Custom Cleat Chronicles, so go ahead and send us some suggestions. Otherwise, we might just keep calling it Reviewing Your Customs, but we're open to other suggestions. So thank you guys for that, and we will see you guys in the next one.